Pokemon Battle Spot Singles is a format that is looked down upon by many competitive players. Why? Well, simply put, it's a watered down format of the standard singles competitive scene that we have all come to love. I mean, bring 6, pick 3 sounds a whole lot more unappealing than the standard 6v6 format. However, the fast-paced action has led to an addictive format that a lot of people on the Switch have actually come to enjoy. With that being said, I wanted to answer the question, is Pokemon Battle Spot really that easy? And what do I mean by that? Well, if you haven't watched a single video on this channel, I'm a competitive singles player, and I haven't touched Battle Spot since I've looked like this. So that's why I'm making this video. Is Pokemon Battle Spot Singles something that any competitive singles player can just jump into and dominate? Or is it a little bit deeper than that? Before we could even start playing, we needed to build the best team that we possibly could. The first step for this was to check Smogon viability rankings. And honestly, there were very few surprises there. The top threats are Pokemon you'd expect. They're mostly Uber's Pokemon, and the A to B tiered Pokemon are OU threats. So pretty much OU threats and above are what dominate this tier. So the question is now, how do we build the best possible team? The first Pokemon that I wanted to start our adventure with was going to be Chien-Pao. Basically a channel mascot at this point. I know how overwhelming Chien-Pao can get. I decided to be Focus Sash for primarily lead sets, but to also have some form of late game potential. I threw on a standard SD3 attack set with Terra Dark to take advantage of Sucker Punch, and our Ice Weasel was basically ready to go. We have max speed to speed type, primarily Flutter Mains, but also other Chien-Paos, and honestly, this mon alone should win us some games, especially lower on the ladder. To pair with our broken Ice Weasel, I wanted some hazards, so Glimmora is going to be the next Pokemon. Not only helping with hazards, but also adding removal of its own with Mortal Spin, Glimmora definitely fills a lot of roles that I wanted. We rounded out the moveset with Dual Stab and threw on a Sugar Berry for the ground moves that I thought were going to be everywhere. And our EV spread is... yeah, the idea was that this is one of our switch-ins to Flutter Mane, so we can take 2 Terra Fairy Specs Moonblasts. We can outspeed the 20 speed Annihilate, and we can live a banded Urshifu single Wicked Blow. We then went Modest to take advantage of our nature, as well as Terra Grass for ground moves and other niche Spore scenarios. I really wanted a way to deny hazards next, because Chien-Pao obviously really loves taking advantage of hazards. So I decided to throw everybody's favorite ghost type on the team, Annihilate. We are Covert Cloak because this is going to be our answer to Garganacl. Taunt plus Bulk Up lets us beat a whole lot of fat, with Drain Punch for recovery and Rage Fist because it is broken. We're Terra Water primarily for the Urshifu Rapid, but also just because it's a really good defensive type. We have enough speed EVs to outspeed most other bulky Annihilates. We take 2 non-banded Urshifu Wicked Blows after Rocks, and we can live 1 Terra Fairy Specs Moonblast from the Flutter Mane if we are Terra. I loved Annihilate here because, as you can see, it helped with so many different matchups simply by existing on our team. After the first 3 Pokemon, I had a devious idea. What if I use the same Pokemon that I always use? So I decided to go with an old favorite and also a Pokemon that just fits well on the team. We're going to go with Slowking Galar. The snow buff is something that I think goes unappreciated on Pokemon like Chien-Pao, so I wanted to take advantage of it if I could. Slowking also helps us with a bunch of top tier threats. We can pivot on Specs Flutter Mane, eat pretty much any special hit from any Pokemon, and generally just be a nuisance to opposing teams. Future Sight can really force pivots, and Sludge Bomb is going to round out the other half of our stabs. Flamethrower is here because Corviknight is very scary, and does this help? No, but I can certainly pretend that it does. I am extremely original, so our next Pokemon is going to be Baxcalibur. Boom! Here is our set, feeling daring today with Terra Poison because I think it's really cool, and Baxcalibur is a cool guy, and that was a pun, but not really intended. And that's going to be Baxcalibur. Lastly, Flutter Mane is broken, man, so it just kind of made its way onto my team. We have booster speed to outspeed other Flutter Manes, as well as potential Scarf Urshifus, which I think would be pretty common. I opted for Calm Mind to set up on other special threats, and we went Mystical Fire over Psyshock specifically for the Corviknights. And we stuck with Terra Fairy because Moonblast is incredibly spammable. With our team completed, there were a couple of things I was worried about. No Urshifu switching, opposing shield types. As a draft player, I try to prep for pretty much any situation that you might run into, and that is just not possible in a format like this. So instead, I offer you this, Weeball. The beginner tier went probably about how you expected. We started off 5-0 in our first session to land ourselves in the Pokeball tier. This came with very little resistance, minus one game where I almost completely threw the game away, but I expertly played myself back into it. This time was mostly used to learn the team and really just to get comfortable with it. This first set of 5 games taught me 2 very valuable things immediately. First of which, it's going to be very hard for me to decide which 3 Pokemon to bring for any given matchup. As someone who plays standard 6v6 and I'm used to having other Pokemon to fall back on, this was a big roadblock. And 2, someone at Game Freak really wants Urshifu to be the best Pokemon across every format. You load into a game and you don't know which Urshifu you're playing. I'm off script. I don't know who thought this was a good idea. This was a horrible idea. Give the separate Urshifus a different sprite. It is mind-boggling that these game-changing Pokemon do not have separate sprites. I don't know which one I'm going up against. And that is the biggest roadblock in all of this because there's an Urshifu damn near every game. For games 6 through 10, we actually had some pretty quality games. For instance, there was a game where I led Annihilate and won. That was the whole game. Do not bring Stall. Other than that, you could actually tell that there was some skill difference between the first 5 games and these 5 games. And while that might have just been dumb luck because it went from the beginner tier to the Pokeball tier, I thought maybe it meant something. There were a few matches that were actually extremely close. In one of them, Urshifu really tried to ruin my day and almost destroyed us, but I rage-fisted on a potential random Terra Ghost and actually got the play right and we won the game. For our 10th and easily highest quality game thus far, we had our first Glimmora game. In this game, our EVs put in overtime as our EVs for Fat Annihilapes came in clutch, and our Annihilape was able to get a taunt off on an opposing Annihilape to beat it in a one-on-one situation. After that, our Flutterman was able to maneuver around a Destiny bonding Armarouge and lob up the win for Glimmora, who slammed down the dunk as if it was prime LeBron himself. He actually did kill Skeletors, like I'm not over-exaggerating, Glimmora did well. And after the Glimmora slam dunk, we were pretty much almost in Ultra Ball tier. And this was after 2 sessions, so honestly, I thought this was gonna be no problem. The next batch of 6 games went honestly about as bad as it could have, man. Our first game, we faced a really nice team, but the highlight Pokemon here is going to be Ursaluna Blood Moon. I did not realize how much the team that we have struggles with a good, well-played Ursaluna Blood Moon. Our opponent decided to lead it and show me that this was the case, as they decided to take down our Baxcalibur and put our Fluttermane to sleep, which made me then choose between sleeping or losing the game later on, so I had to sack off the Fluttermane, and ultimately, we did lose the game. The next game kind of went well at first. We had to play my favorite game in this next match, and that was, what Urshifu does your opponent have? I guessed Urshifu Single Strike, and you can probably guess by my sarcasm, I was wrong. I led our Terra Fairy Glowking to try to catch the Urshifu off guard, obviously resist dual stabs and can do a ton of damage back, but they decided to show us Urshifu Rapid, and that was not fun. I kept Slowking in to find out if it was banded or not, and then proceeded to go Annihilate to take advantage of this Pokemon with our Terra Water. After a bulk up, the game was looking really great. However, our opponent made a fantastic double into Goldango as we Drain Punched, and they killed me with a Specs Thunderbolt, and I got insanely tilted at this point. Once I regained consciousness though, I decided, hey, doesn't Baxcalibur just kind of win the game from this position? We know this Goldango is locked into Thunderbolt, and at this point, everything dies to Baxcalibur if we get a Dragon Dance up. And because of the damage that we took earlier on Slowking, we know for a fact that the Urshifu is banded, so we know we outspeed with our Jolly Baxcalibur. So the game right now was looking like a Baxcalibur in-game. We did surprise our opponent, we outspeed the Urshifu and we killed the Urshifu, and then our opponent went into Ogerpon Hearthflame. And our Baxcalibur is actually our Ogerpon Hearthflame check, so I was like, ah, no big deal, we can just push past this. We kill this with Icicle Spear. To my dismay, we did not kill with Icicle Spear. We needed 5 hits because they were like max Fizdef Ogerpon Hearthflame for some reason, and they lived on like 2% HP, and we got 4 hits. So after this, I was incredibly upset. I felt like we should have won that game in almost any situation, and we did not. So instead of putting the game down like a normal human being would do after they get incredibly angry at a children's video game, I decided to keep playing. That sounds so stupid when I say it out loud, huh? After that, I went 1-3, ending the session at a completely disrespectful 1-5 record. There was definitely some unfortunate hacks involved in a couple of these games, and yeah, maybe I should have won a few, but ultimately, the reason that I lost is because I was playing on tilt. I may not like to lose, but I am able to take a step back and realize what we did wrong. So I want to ask you guys, what do you think we learned from this session? The first thing is very obvious. I should have put the game down. Usually in games, I have a rule where if I lose 2 in a row, I'm done, because I will play poorly after that, because I will not be happy, I will not be enjoying myself, I will not be having a good time. The second thing that we learned is now all of these teams are actually really good. 5 out of the 6 of the teams that we played in this session were actually viable. They were good teams, and that's worrisome. We have now entered the territory of these teams are good, and we're gonna face an Urshifu every single game. Which one? Your guess is as good as mine, man. Our next session was a long one. I sat and grinded for a few hours, and we got all the way from Great Ball 7 to Ultra Ball Tin tier. Through this session, I learned 2 things. The first of which, lead Annihilate is something that pretty much every team struggled with. Annihilate was led in almost every game of this session and easily became our MVP through this session alone. We unfortunately had to lead Annihilate guaranteed anytime that we saw an Urshifu, because it was our best counter to Urshifu Rapid and could also pretty much always take a hit from Urshifu single. So it was led a whole lot because we saw a whole lot of Urshifus. On top of that, unfortunately, I hate admitting when I'm wrong, I was wrong. Glamora and Slowking Galar were kind of dead weight on this team, and I kind of wish I had 2 different Pokemon. The concept was cool, especially for Slowking Galar with the Snow Boost on Chi and Power Excalibur, but the reality of the situation is that they wanted to Terra almost immediately, pretty much anytime they were sent out, so they didn't really get to take advantage of that Snow Boost. On top of that, Slowking matched up so poorly into so many of the different top tier threats unless we Terra'd, and even then it was like kind of iffy, and we really didn't want to waste our Terra on Slowking. We really wanted it for Annihilate or Chi and Pow specifically, and then in some situations Baxcalibur and Fluttermane. Glamora did have its moments for sure, and it was a pretty cool bring in the games that it was brought. It definitely made a difference, but it was only brought to about 10% of the games that we played, and it was only considered for about 20% of the games that we played, and really that's a wasted team slot. I ultimately decided to stick with the team we have, 1, because I didn't want to create more graphics, and 2, it seemed like our other 4 Pokemon were pretty capable of carrying us all the way to the top. There were some really great games this session. A lot of them were just lead Annihilate and proceed to win the game. There was one game that I really enjoyed in particular where we faced a rain team and we let our Terra water Annihilate and we won the game immediately. There was nothing our opponent could do and he was not prepared for a Terra water Annihilate. In the games that did not result in an Annihilate sweep, it was pretty much Chi and Pow and Fluttermane breaking for whichever one had a better in-game. Chi and Pow was able to really show its stuff and why it is a valuable member of the team during this session, and we were able to stomp our way through Great Ball all the way up to Ultra Ball. I was also getting a little unlucky towards the end of these sessions. There were some games that just were not fun to play, but unlike last time, I cut the session short and we remained in Ultra Ball tier, so that's fantastic. As we were nearing Master Ball, I realized that this session could probably be our last. We were probably 4 or 5 wins out of the Master Ball tier at this point. For our first game of the session, we led Annihilate once again into the Ursaluna, not Blood Moon this time, which really couldn't do all that much against us, and we bulked up in his face. Our opponent went into Goldingo, and we absolutely chewed the Shadow Ball with our Terra, and we KO'd them back with a Rage Fist. Rillaboom came in, and I decided to keep our Annihilate around because otherwise we might lose to the Ursaluna, and this Rillaboom's Woody Hammer almost wiped our Baxcalibur off of the face of this earth with how much damage it did to us. Some quick Icicle Spears and 1 Chi and Pow entrance later, we won, and ultimately, we gained almost nothing for this win. I have no idea how the ranking system works still after recording all of the games. It seems kind of random and they just decided to give us a very small amount. Game 2 was a breath of fresh air after the Annihilate stomping grounds that we have went through. It was a fantastic Chi and Pow lead game. We led our favorite Ice Weasel into the Fluttermane and we sucker punched as they did not Terra, they didn't care to I guess, and we wiped them off of this planet. Goodbye Fluttermane. Team Lu came out, they decided to use their Terra and we got some massive damage out on Team Lu before we went into our Baxcalibur. We clicked Scale Shot so we outspeed any Pokemon in the back, and then after Baxcalibur went down, Fluttermane horrified our opponent so much they decided to forfeit. For whatever reason, I still don't understand the elo, we gained much more this game than we did the previous game. I have no idea why, but if we gain this amount one more time, it looked kind of like a rough estimate, like one more game would be our last. For potentially our final game, I could not believe my eyes. We had another fantastic Chi and Pow matchup. I mean, there was 0 counterplay to Chi and Pow on our opponent's side of the field. We lead Chi and Pow into their Iron Moth and we sucker punch to do almost no damage. They were a very, very defensive Iron Moth, and then they decided to go into their Vaporeon and Baby Doll Eyes. After realizing our Baxcalibur couldn't really break through this Pokemon, I decided to go hard into our Fluttermane, which maybe is what I should have done anyway to try to set up Calm Minds in the Vaporeon's face, but our opponent made a double. They went into their Iron Moth, and Flutter Mane can still set up in Iron Moth's face, so we Calm Minded as they attacked us, did no damage, and we took our KO. This led to them revealing their last Pokemon, Iron Bundle. Two things crossed my mind whenever Iron Bundle came in. One, it's Terra Steel to chew whatever hit that we go for, or two, it's Sash. I decided to go for the Moonblast because if he was Focus Sash, then we found that out, we potentially got a special attack drop, and if he wasn't Focus Sash, we still got our KO. Unfortunately, we got that wrong. They Terra Steel and they absolutely destroy our Flutter Mane. Chien-Pao is able to take out the Iron Bundle as the combination of Chien-Pao and Baxcalibur are able to push past what was actually an extremely annoying Baby Doll Eyes Vaporeon, and with all of that, we are still one game out of Master Ball. I have no idea how this elo system works, but it's broken. For what is actually the last game, if we win, we face a little bit of an underwhelming team, I'm not gonna lie. Chien-Pao, again, really led perfect into this team, minus the Glastrier. And of course, our opponent was watching our screen or something. I don't know, they led Glastrier. I hard switch into Annihilate to preserve the Sash. Annihilate gets a little bulky with it as they decide to Terra, and we're able to eventually waste their Terra, and our Annihilate beats the Glastrier one-on-one. I let Annihilate go down as Andy Shocks comes in because we go Flutter. I'm gonna be honest, we go Flutter and we Calm Mind and we win. Our opponent knew that, so they did not waste our time, and they forfeited. And if you have been paying attention at all, you would know that we are now finally in the Master Ball tier. Let's go! Oh, let's go! Was Battle Spot Singles as easy as everybody thinks that it is? And more importantly, was it even an enjoyable experience getting all the way to Master Ball? While this was a fun experience, and I actually really enjoyed playing this on my Switch as opposed to Pokemon Showdown, I just don't see a good reason why they made it 3v3. That can really take away the enjoyment of a lot of competitive players, and it creates this format where if you lead incorrectly, you pretty much are going to lose the game. You have to have a very good neutral lead in order to do well in this format, and if you don't, if you get the lead wrong, if you're advantageous with your lead, you're probably going to lose pretty immediately. I understand the 3v3 is for fast-paced fun, but why not have this format and another 6v6 format? I just don't understand. I'm also never going to let the Pokemon Company live it down. Why do you not show us which Urshifu we are facing? It makes no sense, and it actually really detracts from the experience, in my opinion. No, not even in my opinion. Show us which Urshifu we're playing. It doesn't make sense. For a goofy little format that I just loaded up a couple hours a day though, it was pretty fun and I did enjoy myself. As to whether or not the format is easy for a singles competitive player to just jump in and dominate, I went 25-14. A 64% win rate is much less than I anticipated going into this, but it's not a bad win rate by any means. We definitely were able to catch fire and have some hot streaks, but there were also some significant cold streaks that we had to overcome. There were definitely some great players on the ladder, and I could tell that they definitely played competitive singles, but in the same vein, there were also a lot of newer players who just loaded up in-game teams. And that was even high up on the ladder. You saw the last game that we played, their team was not very good. A lot of games were decided by lead matchup rather than good play, so saying whether or not this format was easy is a little bit tough. Obviously, I was still able to do well because I understood competitive Pokemon, so I'm gonna say yes, somebody who understands Pokemon can definitely jump in and do well in this format, but it's a little bit of a stretch to call this format competitive by any stretch of the imagination. And that's gonna be it. Thank you so much for watching this video. I really put my heart and soul into this. Countless hours to play the games, to record these little goofy green screen segments, to edit the video. It's unreal how much time I put into this. And I really just wanted to create something that I felt like I could be proud of. I really want to create a lot more higher quality content like this other than my Draft League videos because it's something I'm really passionate about. I really enjoyed this and I really need your help to make sure that this video does its due diligence because YouTube is going to punish me because this is not what I normally upload. So please, if you enjoyed this, be sure to leave a like and be sure to leave a comment and let me know down below so I can continue doing stuff like this. If you enjoyed, you might as well leave a subscription too. I have some cool stuff planned, and if you enjoyed this video, you're definitely going to enjoy it. I think I got my little heartfelt speech out of the way. So with all that being said, guys, thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. And for now, guys, this has been John Jr. signing off.